The Supreme Court agreed yesterday to hear a gun ownership case that could affect millions of Americans. It will consider whether people who regularly smoke or ingest marijuana can legally own guns. And joining us to talk about this is attorney and KTAR legal analyst Barry Markson.
All right, Barry, question 11E on the federal firearms transaction form asks, are you an unlawful user of marijuana or any other controlled substance? And that's followed by a warning that the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law, regardless of whether it's been legalized in the state where you reside. Sounds pretty clear, right?
What was that?
I mean, it sounds pretty clear.
That's right.
Yeah.
So under federal law, marijuana is still illegal. So even though marijuana, for example, is legal in Arizona, it's still illegal federally. And the current federal law says that if you are a regular user of an unlawful drug, which includes marijuana at the federal level, you are unable to own a firearm. You may remember this was one of the charges against Hunter Biden, that he signed a form saying that he was not a drug user when he bought a gun, and he was a drug user. The evidence showed he was a drug user at that time. This is coming back. This issue is coming to the Supreme Court now after a Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling that said that interpreted that law to mean you had to be under the influence of the drug at the time of using the gun, not necessarily a habitual drug user.
Okay, we are talking with KTAR legal analyst Barry Markson about a case that the Supreme Court has agreed to take on, determining if marijuana users are allowed to own a gun under federal law. So does this surprise you at all, Barry, that a Republican administration is arguing against a broad reading of the Second Amendment?
Yeah, I mean, normally you would say that would be what you'd expect, right, Jim? That they would want to have as much gun rights as you can. Here they're asking the court to kind of take another look at this law and determine how it should be interpreted. I don't know if that's because they don't want Hunter Biden's conviction to be overturned or if there's something else going on here. But it is interesting that the Supreme Court is going to hear this. Generally, the Supreme Court now, since 2022, has set a standard that gun laws are to be interpreted as they have historically been viewed in the United States. So it's a rule that generally says you're going to be able to own the gun with certain exceptions. Now, there have been exceptions since 2022. There's an exception that the Supreme Court found, for example, if you've been convicted of domestic violence or you're a threat of domestic violence. There's one other exception. So there's exceptions to it. The Supreme Court has not found this as an automatic blanket right to firearm ownership. But for the most part, the Supreme Court has been expanding gun rights under the Second Amendment.
So, I mean, it's interesting because, when you think of marijuana users, you don't generally think of people who are really motivated to high crime. Whereas, you go to the Hunter Biden portion of the program where, we're talking crack. I mean, it seems like there's a little bit of a difference there.
Well, that's true, and I do think it's important to point out here the Trump administration, what they're asking the Supreme Court to do is to uphold the law as it was enforced before this recent Fifth Circuit Court opinion. So they're actually trying to get the court to enforce a limitation on gun ownership here. They want the court to say that drug users pose a unique danger to society, that it raises the prospect of additional armed and hostile encounters with police officers. So the Trump administration is in essence trying to limit our Second Amendment rights of gun ownership here for people who are users of illegal drugs.
Do you see a little bit of a dichotomy here, a little hypocrisy here? Because I've admitted this many times on the radio. I'm addicted to alcohol. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Yes. I haven't had a drink in 14 and a half years. But I'm addicted to what's not a controlled substance. And yet I'm allowed to possess a firearm.
It's a great analogy, Jim. And it's one I was thinking about as I was reading this. If you could be an alcoholic, you can have a daily alcohol issue where you're intoxicated and you're allowed to own a gun. But if you smoke marijuana, you're not. And I think we see society moving in the direction where marijuana is being treated more like alcohol, right? Where it's legal in many states. It's still not legal federally, but it's legal in many states. I think that's the direction we're moving in. But I agree with you. I do think that's a contradiction. Alcohol is a drug. But for whatever reason, we've always classified it differently than we do even marijuana.
Legal analyst Barry Markson joining Arizona's Morning News. Thank you so much for your time, Barry.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Arizona's Morning News. Click to watch more from KTAR News and hit the button in the middle to subscribe.